So for season 7 of The Walking Dead, I did an analysis of the first episode. I did an analysis of the second episode. And I'm not necessarily going to do an analysis for the third episode. I'm switching things up a little bit. And I would rather focus on whether or not Negan is actually a good villain. And of course, what better time than to talk about villains than during a presidential election? As of the time of me recording this, it actually is election day. So yeah, it just feels appropriate. But I will get into the reasons why I decided to switch things up with this particular video. I do want to go ahead and give you just and I haven't really been reviewing other episodes. Like I said, I've been analyzing them, breaking them down. But I will this time for episode 3 just give you my very quick review of the episode.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
So yeah, that sums up how I felt about that episode. That's a comical way to put it out there, but I'm just being real. I really did not enjoy episode 3, and to be fair, I will break it down just very quickly, a few reasons why I didn't enjoy that episode. Now, obviously, it was a slow episode, but I'm okay with that because the second episode was pretty slow as well, but I really enjoyed it. I love that episode. I did a very long analysis on it. Didn't get a ton of views. I wasn't surprised by that because I really did put a lot of details into that. So because of the length of that, I didn't expect a bunch of views. It was still fun for me to make though. But with this episode, where I felt like the second episode had a lot of subtleties to it that you can go back and really break down, everything was just a little bit too on the nose for me in the third episode. I know it was meant partially as comedy, but the Who's the Boss episode playing it, that was just so cheesy to me. The breaking down of Daryl, or attempting to break him down, the way they did it, the way they went about it, just again, it felt a little too on the nose for me. I mean, just too simplistic, I guess is what I would say. And the character Dwight, trying to give that character more depth and maybe even make us a little sympathetic to the situation. I'm sorry, but for me personally, it's not going to happen. I just don't like that guy. I really don't like him. And I can't see myself turning around anyway on that character. The things that have happened to him in the past, they mentioned some of it, and it is pretty messed up. At the same time, though, I just can't feel for the guy. I can't. I don't like the character at all. Especially because of a murder that he was responsible for going back a little ways. But yeah, that's not going to happen. So I felt like that was a big waste of time in that episode for me, personally. And then the episode made me very concerned about Negan because at the end of season 6, when Negan was introduced, I kind of liked his vibe, but at the same time, it wasn't enough to fully get a feel for him, even though it was a kind of a long-winded scene. It wasn't enough to get a feel for him. When they brought back, when they came back with season 7, episode 1, I really enjoyed the character. Episode 2, even though he wasn't shown directly, his presence was felt, and I still liked the character. But now that we've actually seen him in his element, basically at home, it really is bringing some concerns to my mind, and I really want to address that within this video. So right away, I am wondering, is there more to Negan than we've seen thus far? Because the main reason I'm concerned is because the way that he was in front of Rick's group is pretty much the way that he was in this episode, and within his own area, within his own home. And that really does concern me, that is he going to be this way for the rest of the season, or is there some depth there? Now, let me say this right away. I know that there are some of you that have read the comics, you've read the graphic novels. Please, no spoilers from the comic series. I want to see how this character develops within the TV show. That's what I'm focusing on. And there's a chance that they may draw a lot more from the comics, or they may go in a different direction. We don't know. But regardless, I don't want to know any details from the comics. I'm following the TV series. That's my main focus. So before we can really break Negan down some more, I want to just talk in general about what I feel makes a character a good villain. So I feel one thing that is a must, I don't care what type of villain it is, there has to be justification for their actions. A good example here is Magneto, as played by Michael Fassbender in X-Men First Class, which is still his best performance as Magneto. I did like him in Apocalypse a little bit, but that movie overall just wasn't that great. And then Magneto's presence in Days of Future Past, he really felt like just more of an annoyance than anything, to be honest. When you go back and look at that film and you think about the plot, it's really like he was there just as sort of an annoyance. Like there was no real reason to even rescue him. So yeah, that just kind of bugged me. But First Class though was an excellent movie, and I really like that they showed that he kind of learned. There's that beautiful scene where Professor X really helped him to learn how powerful he was and how to control his powers through the pain that he felt from losing his mother in a concentration camp. That was very powerful. And so he definitely has justification for his actions. Even a villain that's a killing machine like Jason Voorhees has justification because, and I think we can watch, Friday the 13th movies and we can almost in a roundabout way kind of cheer for Jason Voorhees just because it always comes back to him being that abused, deformed child. That will always be there as part of his past, part of his history. So he actually is somewhat sympathetic in a way, even though he's basically a killing machine. Whereas you have, on the other hand, you think about a character like Doomsday in Superman. He's just a straight up killing machine, almost mindless. I know there have been different variations of the character, but the most well-known one is just a killing machine, a non-stop brute. I don't really find that to be an interesting character. Some people really like Doomsday. I can understand maybe liking his design, especially his comic book design, but beyond that, that's not a great villain to me. I think there has to be a justification for the actions. Another thing that's very important is charisma, but also emotional depth. It can't be all charisma. There has to be something behind it. And I think that's why we like Loki so much. Loki, as played by Tom Hiddleston, definitely has charisma, but he has that emotional depth. And like I said previously, he does have justification for his actions as well. He was lied to almost his entire life. He didn't even know about being born as a frost giant, basically. So he was lied to, and then he showed emotional depth too, especially in the second movie, which really, if I had to rank the Marvel movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, the second Thor movie would probably be at the bottom, all the way at the bottom. That was a pretty weak movie overall, but it did show some emotion for the character Loki at the loss of, and spoiler alert here, hopefully you're caught up on all your Marvel movies, but over the loss of his mother, when it showed the pain that he was dealing with there, that's some emotional depth, and like I said, the charisma's there as well. So that combination is important, especially when a villain is leading other people. You just can't buy that there are some villains that they're just so off-putting and so just rude and things like that. It's just like, how is anybody following this person? So the charisma has got to be there, especially where they left Loki at the end of the second movie, which I hope is addressed very well within the next movie. I think there's already been some hints, some on-scene shots of Anthony Hopkins kind of letting us know that they are going to follow through with that. Even though the director is saying that he's really not worrying so much about the previous movies, we know that Marvel does keep some consistency though. Okay, moving on here, there has to be a mix of intelligence and brutality. I know some people really weren't a fan of Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. Everybody seems to love the voice, but some people didn't like the character, the character's ultimate motivations. There are definitely a lot of flaws in The Dark Knight Rises. We can be real about that. There are some shocking flaws in it, considering how well they did with the other two movies, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. So, but still, I feel like Bane was that great mix of intelligence and brutality. He had a plan in place. He followed it through. He was actually more successful in his plan than the Joker was in The Dark Knight. And I've definitely got into some interesting conversations with some people about that. But I still think it's true. Whereas the Joker really wanted to corrupt people, he was not successful. Bane managed to do that. He pretty much tore Gotham apart, but then he had that ridiculous timeline with the bomb that just made no sense at all, of course, and gave Batman a chance to recover. Of course, that made no sense. But still, Bane as a character, whether we're talking about the movie version or in the comics, sometimes in animation, not always, because sometimes in animation he's just a brute. But overall, he is intelligent, and he does have that brutality about him. He has that strength. And I'm not saying that a character always has to be physically strong, but they have to be threatening in some kind of way. Another good example of that, of course, is you think about Hannibal Lecter. Not the most physically imposing man, but we've seen what he's capable of. And a person can be capable of a lot when they basically they have no leash on themselves. They have nothing holding them back. And I know that's ironic to say with this image that's on the screen, but you know what I mean by that. When a person is just willing to go all out and really hurt others, there's a lot of damage they can do, and that definitely sums up Hannibal Lecter. But at the same time, we know that he's also highly intelligent. That's what makes him so dangerous. And finally here, there has to be a method to the madness. One of the things that I loved about the Joker, and especially in The Dark Knight, is that he would keep saying, do I really look like a guy with a plan? Does it seem like I have a plan? It was a total lie. It was a total sham. Obviously, he had a plan all along. And I love how he just kept downplaying and act like he was just crazy. That he was not just a dog chasing a car, as he said before. That was not him. You know, he really did have a plan. As a matter of fact, I felt like this character, as brilliantly portrayed by Heath Ledger, was really a combination of, you could say he was almost like a combination of the Joker and the Riddler. He was as intelligent, as clever as the Riddler is in the comics. And I actually liked that about him, even though I kind of felt like it stepped on the toes of us ever possibly having the Riddler on film anytime soon. But still, great performance, and just a great villain that, again, had that method to his madness. His one big flaw, though, was that he completely left it up maybe too much to the people to try to convert them to his side, to just, the whole thing with the ships at the end. I won't get into all the details. I'm sure most of you have seen that movie, but yeah, his plan definitely could have been handled better. So that was his one flaw. But other than that, really great villain, and definitely the method behind his madness. He's not just a crazy individual. And going all the way back to the first thing I said, there is reasoning behind the way that the Joker is. Now, the Killing Joke, we still don't know how much of his story is actually true. About him having a wife and losing a child and all those things. We really don't know how much of that is true, but obviously he is a man that had one bad day, and it really did change him. So I think we can feel for him because of that. The Joker, even with the horrible, despicable things that he does, we know that he is a broken man in some ways, and that's why we can be somewhat sympathetic to him. So, getting to Negan, I want to start off with the positives. Brutality, I don't think anybody will dispute that. The man definitely has brutality. He definitely showed that, not afraid to hurt people. He does have charisma as well. I mean, you think about Jeffrey Dean Morgan, the way he portrayed that character, that first episode of season 7, it was pretty much all him. I mean, there were great reactions. I'm not downplaying the other actors, because their reactions helped a lot too. Glenn's final line, very impactful. Maggie's reaction, very impactful. Everything that Rick Grimes was going through, those meant a lot. And I think Carl too, Carl's bravery meant a lot as well. But as far as dialogue, it was on the back of Negan, on Jeffrey Dean Morgan, to really carry that episode, because he had to have had at least like 70% of the dialogue, if not more, in that episode. That's a lot to put on one actor, but he carried it so well. And it was great that he had that mix of charisma and brutality. And I've said this before about Negan, I definitely think he understands human nature. He realizes that you can't just kill the person that comes directly at you. Like, he didn't kill Rick, he didn't kill Daryl, but he did punish the group by killing other people. So we lost Abraham, we lost Glenn. And again, that's an intelligent thing for him to do. That shows that he understands human nature, because, like I said before, self-sacrifice is easy, but when you realize you're responsible for other people's lives, it's more likely to put you in check. And Negan understands that. That's one of the most brilliant things about the character. Now, as far as negatives or concerns, whatever you want to call it, he definitely mistreats too many of his own people. And forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy that Dwight killed, he even pointed this out before Dwight. I mean, he was asking to be killed, so it was almost like a mercy killing. But before Dwight killed him, the guy even pointed out, like, there are so many of us. Why don't we turn against Negan? And it really points out a huge plot hole in the series right now. It's like, yeah, why don't these people turn back against him? Because you see, even the people that seem to be the closest to him, there are still people, he's saying that they're living like kings, but they're really not. They're still not living on the level that he is. It's just that they're a step away from what Daryl is dealing with, you know. So, and even they have to kind of scrounge, the whole thing with Dwight putting his sandwich together, he had to kind of scrounge to even make that happen. So it's like, I just don't understand how any villain could get away with mistreating a whole bunch of their own people. It seems like it would come back on them at some point. And that does go along with these other negative points about Negan as well. He's definitely overly ambitious. He wants to have control over everything. I think he's overreaching, and I think that's going to have a negative effect on him because, again, people have got to realize, we can get together, we can turn against him. And he's definitely arrogant too. That's the main thing I didn't like about him in this episode. He's walking around just basically the same way that he was in front of Rick's group in episode 1. He's that same way within his compound. And I didn't expect that. I expected him to be maybe a little more casual. Maybe you would see some connections with some of his people and understand their loyalty a little bit more. I didn't see any of that. I just saw a very arrogant man who acts like he just has control over everything, and like I said, mistreating his people, and I just don't get it. I really hope they flesh this character out more. I hope there's more to it. I hope there's more of an understanding of how he keeps this power the way he does. Like I said, right now I'm just not seeing it, when even it seems like his top dogs are people that he's mistreated at least at some point. I just don't get it. So that really needs to be explained some for me personally. So I want to hear from you all. Do you think Negan is or will become a good villain? Right now, I like some aspects of the character, but I haven't seen enough to feel like he's a good villain. I thought he was initially, but now I'm really questioning it, just because, like I said, I felt like I expected to see a difference in his behavior once we saw him at home, and that wasn't there. And considering the things that he did to Dwight, and for him to very arrogantly, offer other women to Dwight after he's taken his woman, it's just, that doesn't sit well with me. So I'm really hoping there'll be a lot more that goes on with Negan and a lot more humanity within him as well. Because otherwise, he's just evil for the sake of evil. And I hate that about villains. That's why there are so many villains that don't work. And I wish that more writers would learn this. Evil for the sake of evil is not interesting. It doesn't work. But yeah, I really want to hear your feedback. What do you think about Negan thus far? Remember, please, no spoilers from the comics. And I'll definitely respond back to whatever you feel. I'm really looking forward to your responses. And as always, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And also, if you want to share this, if you want to share any of my previous videos, feel free to do so. I'm always open to feedback. So thank you for watching, and you all take care.